Our next featured project will take us to Berlin. When we click on Berlin, we'll see a number of historical maps available to us, and I'll go ahead and load one, in this case the 1772 map, and I'll go to the collection list, and in this case I'm going to click on a student project called the Stadtschloss Rebuild. This particular project has two-dimensional and three-dimensional objects, the E indicating Earth view, and I want to be sure I have those clicked on as well. This particular project documents the building in one particular area of Berlin, right here, where the royal castle was first erected in 1442. This castle stood for almost 500 years. It was bombed during the Second World War, and finally, at the end of the war, was destroyed by the East Germans, and a number of years later, they built their own palace on top of this land called the Palace of the Republic. This particular area of Berlin is very layered, a dense palimpsest of different political regimes that have ruled Berlin and various political ideologies that they espoused. The student project was an attempt to understand and unpack those political regimes using a number of maps, historical reconstructions, 2D and 3D objects to unpack the controversy and the decision that's been made to actually rebuild the royal castle today. The student project is developed by three different chapters: the Stadtschloss, the Palace of the Republic, and the Plaza today. If we go ahead and open up the Stadtschloss, what we'll see here is this particular region on the 1772 map, and we'll also notice that they have a three-dimensional object, which we can only view by switching to Earth view. When we switch Earth view, we'll see two buildings that they've recreated using Google SketchUp. They've georeferenced these buildings, and they allow us to see where they would have been at the appropriate scale. We'll go ahead and change the orientation slightly. And in the front here, we see the Royal Castle, and behind it we see the Palace of the Republic, on top of the 1772 map, which is georeferenced and approximately correct in terms of where the building stood. On there, the students document some of the issues around the building, the important people that played a role, the implications for German identity, and the symbolic value of this building. If we go back to one of the other chapters, we'll also be able to see information about the Palace of the Republic. The building was constructed by East Germans, which is the one in the back. The two buildings never existed side by side like this, so in a sense this is a kind of counterfactual history that allows us to understand and begin to unpack the factual history of this landscape. When you see the buildings together, and in fact putting one from the 20th century on top of a map from 1772, one also begins to be able to make comparisons and see the political import of architecture in this densely layered urban landscape. Their argument is importantly illustrated by different media, and it's only through these different media that one can understand the full import of the political decisions to rebuild the castle, and this decision only came down in Berlin in 2008.